welcome back to Hawaii is My Mainland. I'm Kaui Lucas, and with me today I have two compatriots from this last legislative session, the 28th legislative session. We were all embedded in various roles and offices at the legislature, and it was a really great experience for all of us in different ways. And so I invited Michael Moskowitz, who is a New York licensed attorney, moved to Hawaii a year ago only, and besides working in the legislative session where he was House Minority Research Office, which meant he drafted bills and speeches for several representatives. And I will say, since he was in the minority office, if you're not from Hawaii, that means Republican. Prior to that, he was a volunteer at Waimea Botanical Gardens. Yay, Michael. A wonderful place. And also with me is Randy Gonce, who has gone through quite the transformation this session.
Very true, very true.
He is also a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraqi wars.
Correct.
And HPU graduate student.
Correct.
In philosophy?
Teaching English as a second language and applied linguistics.
Okay. All right, I don't know where I got that. Anyway, so, and he is a candidate for the State House of Representatives for the 40th District, which is Eva Beach. So Randy worked on the staff of Matt Lopresti, and I worked in the office of Greg Takayama. And I just had a ball. I just loved it.
We were neighbors. You were right down the hall from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Matt Lopresti was a philosophy major.
Yes. Matt Lopresti was a philosophy major.
That's the philosophy
And he was my
thing.
professor at HPU at one point. So
And I never made it to your office, Michael. I'm not sure where it was, but I saw you got around a lot.
The fourth floor, right next to LRB and HMSO. And we definitely had to run around gathering info, and going to hearings. We pretty much attended all the hearings and took notes on testimony and provided updates to the reps, and among the bill writing and speech drafting.
So the people you were helping was our one Republican senator, Sam Slong.
Mostly it was
And
the House.
And the House.
Yes, the 7 representatives in the House who are the minority leader, which is Fukumoto Chang, Lauren Matsumoto, Feki Puha, and Bob McDermott, Jean Ward, Cynthia Thielen, and Andrea Tupola.
Right. Good job.
nice.
So yeah, you can count our Republicans on your fingers. I don't know how many places can say that.
Yeah, that's true.
So why weren't you involved with the Senate? Because he didn't need help, or that's not your...
They have their own drafting agencies
okay.
as well
All right.
to help them.
All right. That was one thing that I learned being there, that there, just the protocol, the way things, who does, it's completely separate. There is not a lot of overlap at all.
Right. Yeah, they like to keep it to House as a House and Senate as Senate, and then they only come together for certain times of the year.
Yeah, so we're going to get in deeply at one of those times of the year, which comes at the end, is the conference. But why don't you go ahead and just kind of give us how was it for you? I had a ball. How was it for you?
I had a blast. I really enjoyed just getting to dive into all what they had going on there at the session. And I've heard before the previous session of all the juicy stuff that happened, so I was ready to jump in and see what they had to offer. I also all the legislative bills and resos that were going to come out.
What did you think?
I had a great time. It was great interacting with all the representatives and all the staff. I thought everybody was really talented and friendly.
Absolutely.
And committed to public service.
I have to say, I was surprised about that too. Before I worked at the legislature, I was really sort of critical and,
right, of course,
skeptical, and but I have to say, across the board, of course there's some bad apples, but I was impressed at how much effort and how seriously everybody took their job. And, you know, the staff, I mean, I didn't do that kind of deep, detailed work. I was mostly doing just office stuff, but Representative Takayama took every phone call from his constituents very seriously. I couldn't believe, I mean, over a pothole, you know, what we would go through. So that was a really good thing I thought.
And all of the staff, you know, we're not making the big bucks, but everybody,
Right.
no matter what position you
Absolutely.
are, would stay till 10 p.m.,
Yes.
come in on the weekends, and put in a lot. So it was a lot of work, but
Right.
it was rewarding.
Right, absolutely.
And did we start out with 3,000 bills? Do either of you remember
Yeah,
what that?
that's
That
about
number
right.
sounds
And
pretty
about
accurate,
300
yeah.
passed.
Yeah, about
So,
300.
so the winnowing process of 3,000 bills to 300. So each legislator has an allotment, right? I think they 5, at least in the House. I don't know what it is for the Senate.
Yeah.
But
It also depends on if you're a chair or a vice chair of a committee or something, then you get more. You can pass and things like that.
so it's not an unlimited number.
I think might be more than that. I think they get to submit several to each drafting agency as well, and each drafting agency could write them a few bills.
So how many did you write?
About over 20 bills, I'd say.
Wow, that's a lot of bills.
And did any get passed?
None that I wrote. A few, the language was taken. A few made it as resolutions. And
Is that because you were in the minority?
it's very rare that minority bills do make it, but we did get a few minority bills passed this year. I think they were more collaborative this year as opposed to
Right,
past.
which is
years.
good. We should have, we should have collaborative on both sides, right?
And why do you think that? I mean, do you have any like examples of?
Well, this is my first session, but they say that this wasn't a too lively session. It was pretty tame. They did a lot of bills that needed to be passed that both sides could agree on, and both sides kind of worked together.
What were some of the standouts for you?
Well, one of our representatives, Cynthia Thielen, she's been working on an issue for over 2 decades, which was the Industrial Hemp Pilot Project bill, which finally got passed. It wasn't her bill that she introduced. I think it was Senator Gabbard's, but I think they worked collaboratively with that. And there were several other bills.
Randy, did you, working for Matt Lopresti, was there anything specific that he championed that got through?
Yeah, so we had our privacy bill. So this is, we put language together that, we live in an age where technology is dominant in our lives, and sometimes law doesn't keep up with, the changes we have.
Right.
So we put language together in a bill that protects employees from their employers. So you don't have to be coerced to accept a friend request or be, buddy-buddy with someone on social network or Facebook or Twitter, because that can, in turn, maybe press judgment between you and an employee if you like to go out and have fun on the weekends, or you're involved in something that the other, maybe someone in your office doesn't like. You can't be coerced to give up all your information. And I think that's really important, especially nowadays when we have social medias everywhere. So.
Yes. Although I was surprised at how little most of the representatives, I mean, there are a few outstanding exceptions who use it regularly. It wasn't a huge tool for most of them. That might be a generational thing, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, I mean, I do know
How
a
much
few.
did Lopresti do?
So he's pretty active on the social media, and sometimes it was us that would handle some of his releases that he would want to put out, and he'd give us a rundown of what he wants to put out. And sometimes it was him when he had the time to post on something on Facebook or Twitter. And I think a lot of it is maybe the younger tech savvy legislators that have, I guess, the know-how to do it. But usually if the staff members have the time and the availability, they'll send out a little press release or say guess what we did today and things like that. it's good. It's good to be able to communicate in a different way than just snail mail or something, right?
Yeah. So what were a big surprise for you? I mean, you're coming from New York, which is really different. Did you do
Oh, yeah.
politics in New York?
Not really. I mean, I've always been interested in politics, and I became a lawyer because I would like to get into public policy more. But basically, the main difference between New York and Hawaii is, I guess, New Yorkers are known for speaking their minds and not holding back. And so, and we would not think of anything of it. You just say, like, this is what we think about this. But I noticed that specifically in Hawaii, in the Hawaii capital, it has a Japanese culture, which is very kind and polite in public, and basically all the harsh talking would be done behind closed doors. So, but it has its purpose, and it's very respectful, and it's how things are done here.
That was put very nicely.
Very nicely, very
And
nicely.
yes, you get kudos for doing that so gently for New Yorkers. And I had to have a New Yorker on the show to speak it out. I spent 6 years in New York, so I understand that sensibility. And I have to say, although I grew up here, I am fairly outspoken, but generally not loudly. That I was surprised at the depth of what you were talking about, and thus the name of this show, Death by Inertia, and how that has infiltrated the hierarchy of how a bill travels. And so we're going to get into that, I think, after our break.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, offering lifelong learning from passionate hosts and fascinating guests ready to explore and explain Hawaii's place in the 21st century. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, my name is Carl Kimpania. I'm the host of Think Tech Hawaii's Education Movers, Shakers, and Reformers. You can see our show every Wednesday at noon at 12 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com, as well as visiting YouTube and finding the link for the show there. The show is also aired on OC16. We look forward to seeing you on the show. We have many wonderful guests, including Joan Husted, Corey Rosenlee, where we talk about the very important issues of education for our keiki. We look forward to seeing you there. Mahalo.
Aloha and welcome to Think Tech Hawaii. I am Ina Chang. I am the guest host for Small Business Hawaii with Reg Baker. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. and watch us. Aloha.
Welcome back to Hawaii is My Mainland. I am Kaui Lucas, and as of this, we are live on Friday afternoons here at Think Tech Hawaii. And then sometime tomorrow I will post on my blog of the same name, Hawaii is My Mainland, at kauilucas.com, the video of today's chat and any supporting materials that we might need, which we might need now that we're going to get into the labyrinth of how it works with this whole conference thing. So do you want to go through, does one of you want to say, okay, the bill goes through the House, a bill goes and then it crosses over to the Senate, and then it happens on the other side. The Senate has a bill and they pass it and it crosses over to the House. And then something interesting happens.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that?
I think you summed it up pretty well. It goes to the House and it goes to the Senate, and as long as it passes both places, then they have to come together again at the end of the session, and all the work accumulates into a few days. And you get people from the House and the Senate, and they come together and they make committees. And you have a vice chair and a chair of each committee, and then there's a few conferees, other members in the committee, and that's kind of where it comes down to the nit and gritty. I mean, that's where bills go to die, unfortunately, and bills come to live. So.
And let's talk about some of the ways they die.
oh, how many other ways can they die? I mean, I don't have enough phalanges to count how many times
Well,
they can
first,
die.
it's already had to go through, not, when it goes through the House and the Senate, it has to go through 3 readings.
Correct.
So we've already had it, 3 votes on it.
Right, that's in the Constitution, the Hawaii Constitution.
Right.
3 votes on each side, and if the House or the Senate agree to the other's version, it could just, the side that the bill is on could just agree to it and pass the bill.
Correct.
And then when you go to conference, they're basically working out the differences between the Senate and the House version.
So of the bills, so there's this habit of introducing similar bills simultaneously in both the House and the Senate. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm not really sure why they do that, but there are very similar bills going through both houses simultaneously. Possibly if one dies, there's another vehicle for that same language to get passed. And they may make different changes along the way. And
Kind of like a reassurance, maybe, if they really want it to go through and they have 2, you've got double the chance.
Oh, at some point, I was instructed, or I had the opportunity, really, I wanted to do it, to go to the training session for the conference. And let's have the diagram of what happens and where a bill goes. Here we go. House bills returned from Senate. And
It's funny because, when you think about putting a bill through and it has to go through these certain areas, but you never think it's this elaborate, right? You think that, you get people together and they can talk, and if they agree, they agree, and if they don't, they don't. But there's so many different avenues it can get stuck in, or it can die in. It can die at the first stage, it can die at the very last stage. So for all that work that you do throughout the session, throughout the entire year, it can really come down to, a couple minutes.
so a bill gets introduced to either the Senate or the House, and then the Speaker of each House will assign it to a number of committees. So it could assign it to 1 committee or up to possibly 3 committees. And those are the subject matter committees, such as health or consumer protection. And you'll have various representatives or senators on each committee, and they'll ask the people who are affected by the bills about them and what they think about them. And they'll amend the bills according to what the stakeholders say. And so it might get amended slightly in the health committee, then it goes to housing, it gets amended a little bit more, and along the way, it'll become different than the Senate version or the House version. And then, so conference, they have to work it out. And so if it doesn't, they have to pass it out of each committee. If it doesn't get passed out of each committee, then the bill stops there.
or we would get calls because there was no committee meeting scheduled. That was one that I didn't realize was quite so popular as a instrument of death.
Of killing a bill, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to kind of just being the polite way to kill the bill, right, instead of coming against it. If you were a chair or vice chair of a committee and you didn't like the bill, you just never heard it. And one of the things that we had to do when we wanted our bills heard was we had to draft, a letter to maybe the chair or the vice chair of that committee and say, there's 3 of our bills coming into your committee. Please consider hearing our bill either on this date or at any point in this session, because we'd really like to get it through. And that goes with relationships between legislators and things. So it's interesting.
So did you, I don't know about Lo Presti and being what faction he was in, but that was another kind of an interesting layer. Did you pick up?
Well,
on
he's a
that very much?
freshman. This was his first term, and this was his second session. So we had the leisure to kind of go in it with an open mind, and he did some phenomenal work. Our office did some really, really great work this year, and I think we really tried to work with everyone and get things passed. So maybe some of the old guard people who've been there a long time maybe have their set group of people they huddle around a lot, but we had the leisure to work with everyone. It was nice. It was very nice.
Well, Representative Takayama has only been there for three years actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, or 3 sessions. So it seemed like he'd been there a long time, but it was really fun to work with him because even though he hasn't been a legislator a long time, he's, he went to high school in the area that he represents, and so there were all those ties, and it was really fun to see the people come and, you know, speak their mind, and he was so approachable, and so I liked that. It was, it seemed less hierarchical on that side. But then when you get into, well, who is on the committee and who's the committee chair, right? So, Michael, I think you were talking the other day about how you vote on a bill determines whether or not you can be on the conference, right?
Yes, that was a complicated change.
It was
of
interesting
rules
this year, yeah.
Um,
So normally, right, if you vote no or nay on a bill, right, then you can't go to conference for it because you just disagreed with it, so you can't change it up. You know, if you disagree, you don't have a say. But this year,
That's right.
What
this
happened?
year's a little different.
Well, yeah, after a conference started, they changed the rules so that if you voted with reservations, then you couldn't be on one of the conferees in the conference committee.
And sometimes they kind of say that, you know, if you vote with reservations, that's kind of a polite saying, like, well, it's supposed to be that you're not comfortable with the language. You're saying this could be a great bill, this could be something that we could pass, but I want to see some changes happen. And sometimes it's a polite way of saying no. You know, you have, you know, someone that you're close with, or you want to see pass something, but you don't want to say flat out no to them and kill their bill, right? You know, so everyone else is going to follow you. So you say no, reservations, you know, yes, but we can change a little bit of language in it.
So there's like a lot of hurdles for a bill to be passed, and being awarded a number of committees for the bill to be heard in is one of the, so each conference is a hurdle where you have to get passed out of. And it's a balancing test between hearing the stakeholders and maybe just, it'll make it too difficult for the bill to pass. But, in conference, it seems almost like a compromise where they're, because now all these people voted yes who are on the conferees, the bill has a better chance of maybe getting passed.
Right.
It seems
Yes.
completely counterintuitive to me that if you were opposed to a bill, that you could not then vote on it. I mean, for me, that was the biggest thing that I learned
Right.
about this process. So you're saying that during this session, the rules changed.
Right. Right.
Do either of you know how that happened?
Well, you could make rules changes. I believe all rules changes go through the speaker's office. And, so
And if there's overwhelming consensus, right, we're a democracy, you know, everyone votes in the favor, then you can change a rule at any time, pretty much. I mean, within reason, right? But this was after the conference committee had started, so it was a little unusual, right? Because people had already been set to committees. So, and in some instances, I believe they had to be removed from a committee, or were they even set?
in the beginning, the old rule was in place, and they already signed, awarded the conferees to various committees, and then after it was changed within like a day or two, and you had to switch around.
Right,
yes.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so that was a pretty big change, but I understand. I'm glad that they did, because it seemed to me like so many votes were with reservations,
Right.
like the majority.
It would basically still help the bill to get out of conference, but then you would still have another opportunity to vote on the floor, the final vote to pass the bill.
The final vote on the floor, and which final vote would this be, Michael?
Well, the third reading of
Yeah,
the
the
bill.
third reading. There you go.
Okay.
Because I mean, technically sometimes there's like 4 readings if there's like multiple changes or committees, it gets weird. But basically, once the committee agrees to changes, then the whole floor has to agree to the changes they made.
So, it goes in committee on the conferences, and that is the first time that really the Republicans and the the House and the Senate actually talk face to face. And I have a picture, I think it was, I got it off of your Facebook, but I think we can thank Senator Sparrow for that on the picture of how crazy it
Yeah,
got.
you have to have legislators standing up in the corner. You know, you see Keokahale over there hanging out.
Yeah, and there's Greg Takayama in his signature bright shirts.
Yep,
It was
yep,
great. I could always find
Packed house,
easily.
for sure.
And so explain what's going on there.
Well, the Senate was on the right-hand side of the screen and the House was on the left, and it was Senator Roz Baker there and McKelvey. So McKelvey is chair of CPC committee in the House, and Roz Baker is head of CPH, which is Consumer Protection and Health in the Senate. The committees don't completely overlap, but whatever bills were referred to those committees along the way gets broken up into different conferences at the end. So they heard all the CPC, CPH bills.
So what happened there is that they would actually discuss, and the public is allowed to be there, but not to make comments.
Correct. They
Right.
can't even give testimony either. I don't think they give
It's
testimony.
not a committee hearing like the other subject matter committee hearings are, where you have the stakeholders testify. There's no testimony here. This is actually technically not a hearing, it's a meeting.
It's a meeting. So it seemed to me that was the time that the real legislative debate happened, is the only time it happened really in public, was it?
Right, and that's the kind of thing that makes it really interesting, is because in a way I kind of feel like that is a, you know, it's open to the public, it's great, and then everyone leaves and the doors close again, and they
Recess.
and then they come back, and then they talk when the public isn't allowed to be there. So that, in when I first see it, is kind of like, what's really going on behind the closed door, you know? And they don't normally put those on television. And this is, you know, the pictures that you like to see when there's so many people involved and it hits so many ears, but then everyone leaves, and it's sometimes the committee members won't even show up, because really who has the power in the committees are the chair and the vice chair.
I heard from my office manager that it didn't happen this session, but it has happened in the past that that legislatures would just leave campus,
Yes.
so they're not be available for signatures. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
talk about death by inertia.
Yeah, and in the committees, you can't, even as a legislator, you can't openly speak unless the chair or vice chair, you know, calls upon you in that case when the doors are closed.
So these last couple of pictures where there's Jill Tokuda, one of the powerhouses,
in the
because
back.
And those are two of the minority representatives, Beth Fukumoto Chang on the left and Matsumoto, smiling because her sex trafficking bill was passed. That was one of the few minority
Right.
bills. And Fukumoto Chang is very popular these days, getting a lot of national press because she's
That's right.
an up-and-coming Asian legislator.
Yep.
oh, I've missed that press.
It was great, yeah. I think ABC or NBC picked it up or something.
Oh, great. So that thing of there were so many people in the room. That was the last day of, and one of you were there, Michael?
Yes.
Talk about that, please.
Well, that was the very last meeting. That was the finance meeting, so all the bills that had appropriations in them have to get final approval for the money in the bill. And if it doesn't get the money, then the bill can't function, and the bill would die that way.
So the way it gets money is, so often these bills have made this through the labyrinth, but there was a blank line as far as the actual amount,
Yeah.
Right.
And then it has to go through the Ways and Means, and we all knew that there was a Ways and Means committee meeting because all of a sudden there were hundreds of people at the Capitol and overflows and having to set up monitors so others could follow who didn't make it in there. So what was it like in there?
It was nuts at the very end. Definitely packed, and all the people hoping for their bills to be passed were there, or hoping that they would not pass.
Right.
were
Or get
also there.
appropriations, get money,
So
get funding, right?
how did the dialogue happen that created that money?
Well, nobody knows that exactly, but The finance
I love it.
chair is
Yeah.
a very powerful
It's mysterious.
woman. I'd say an up-and-coming player in the House, and that's Representative Sylvia Luke, and she's definitely has a tight control over the finances, and I think you could probably thank her largely for the surplus that they've been having recently. Of course, we'd like certain things to pass, but you have to make sacrifices.
Right. I did. There were days where I definitely felt sorry for them. You know, the really hard choices they
Right.
had to make.
It's difficult because you work really hard, to put those bills together, and some of them are extreme necessities for your district or your constituents. And to have something die can sometimes, sometimes people can take that a little bit personal, but because it is so personal, right? I mean, you're representing the people who need necessities in your area, so it's kind of difficult.
And wasn't there an incident this year where somebody didn't like what was done in her district and so said no more CIP money, capital improvement projects for a little while?
There's all kinds of, so you never see anything in public, it's always very polite and
Yes,
nice.
very polite and
public,
nice.
But you don't, there could be many things going on behind the scenes,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back in a minute.
Aloha, this is Maria Mera, and I'm here to invite you to my bilingual show, Viva Hawaii on Think Tech Hawaii, every other Monday at 3 p.m. We're here to inform, motivate, and entertain you. Join us. Hola, soy María Mera y estoy aquí para invitaros a mi show bilingüe Viva Hawaii en Think Tech Hawaii cada 2 lunes a las 3 de la tarde. Estamos aquí para informaros, motivaros y entreteneros. Apuntaros.
Aloha, welcome to Think Tech Hawaii. My name is Josh Green. I'm the host of a program called Healthcare in Hawaii. I'm a physician. I work in the emergency department on the Big Island. I also serve in the state senate, which, please don't hold that against me, doesn't detract from my television program. We speak about all the big healthcare issues in the state. We get together on Tuesdays from 2 o'clock till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we try to talk about the most important issues in healthcare. This is a terrific venue for people to learn about healthcare. There are many programs on this station. We broadcast it later, not just on the internet, but also on OC16. Thanks for joining us. Please be informed healthcare consumers.
Welcome back to Hawaii is My Mainland. I'm Kaui Lucas, and with me today is Michael Moskowitz and Randy Gonce. So Randy, let's talk about what happened to you when Jane Sanders came to town.
Right. So Jane Sanders came to Hawaii to kind of support Bernie Sanders in trying to garner support here. But also Bernie was the chair of the Senate VA. So we had a Veterans Roundtable discussion at the Disabled American Veterans, and it really grew my heart because she was under the weather at the time, and she had a cold. And as soon as she got off the plane, she didn't go and check out the scenery. She didn't go and check in her hotel. She came straight to the veterans and sat down and talked with us with Tulsi Gabbard.
Is that where we are here?
Yep, that's where we are. There's me, Jane, and a friend of mine, Anthony, and we were able to talk with her. And it just shows how humble she is. She didn't have an entourage with her. She wasn't, snapping pictures and have a security detail. She came up to us and was just so humble and so warming and such an honest person. And it was great to talk to her. And then when I was speaking with her, I was telling her how we need people that can bring people together like Bernie does here in Hawaii. And I was specifically talking about my area, and she said, well, if it's not you, then who's going to do it? So at that moment, it clicked, and I decided I was going to run for State House of Representatives.
Wow!
Yeah.
I remember seeing something somewhere about that. It was like, hey, I know that guy.
Right.
2 offices down. Okay, all right. So how's it been?
It's been going well. It's been going really well. I had a couple hiccups in the beginning of my campaign. I was robbed in town. It was pretty interesting. I was coming out of the bank and I saw a car accident, and a car had flipped over, and I ran over to help a family come out of the vehicle. My military training just kind of kicked in. They teach you to run towards danger and assist, right, as much as you can. And it was just second nature, and I was going to help, and I lay all my belongings down because I had a satchel bag that goes over your shoulder. And I turn around after the family's out, and thank goodness they were okay. And we assess the injuries, they're okay, and the ambulance is coming, and my bag is gone, everything. So my campaign bank account, my school supplies, all my books, and my wallet, and everything was stolen, taken in, and within an hour the guy had used $1,200 or $2,500 of my money and went on a shopping spree. So it was a little minor setback, and I had just pulled papers probably 2 weeks prior. So I had to get all my IDs together and open up a new bank account and reassess the campaign, and so it was really a difficult time, but I'm still rewriting some of my papers for school and my thesis. But now it's great. I've been knocking on doors and sign waving, and I have so much support from my area, and there's such beautiful people, and the community is so phenomenal, and they're really hungry for someone who can be effective. So it's
again,
great.
your area is Iroquois
Point, Eva Beach, Eva Gentry, and Eva in general. It's called District 40.
And you're running against somebody who's been in for a while, right?
Right. I do have a
Kelly?
primary challenger, Rose Martinez. She's on the Democratic side, and she's ran for the seat 4 or 5 times. And then on the general election, it's Bob McDermott.
Bob McDermott, right.
And he has been, this is his second term in that area, and then he was also representative in a different district prior.
Okay, I have to say, I'm just going to say it. His speech on the floor about Planned Parenthood was the low point
that one hurt.
Of the session.
That one hurt big time.
I have friends who work at Planned Parenthood, and I had to leave the office and make a phone call.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us had to. It was hard to swallow. It was a tough pill to swallow. It really was. One of the things that stand out to me was that he compared it to like a terrorist organization. And for someone who myself, who had served overseas, and I know what a terrorist organization is, Planned Parenthood is the complete opposite, absolutely complete opposite. So it was a really tough pill to swallow to hear that. And it's being broadcasted across the state, right? And it was just a little embarrassing.
Yeah, embarrassing. He used language that I never thought I'd hear being spoken in the chamber. Did you get to hear that?
I did, and it shows the big divisions between the Republicans, because you have Bob McDermott, who's very extreme right wing, and then you have Fukumoto Chang passing women's rights contraceptive bills that guarantee contraceptive coverage for 12 months.
Right.
And
Yay!
Matsumoto's sex trafficking bills.
Right,
so.
exactly.
Good for her.
And I think that's kind of what the legislature is about. It's about working together and bringing everybody together on issues, and no matter what your background is or what your belief system is, you're really trying to find common ground to improve the lives of everyone in our state, no matter, who you are and where you come from. So
it's not all polite down at the Capitol. So
not always. There's always the exception. There's always the
so-
exception, and he's been an exception for a while, unfortunately.
So I actually, given what we've been talking about, maybe we should be celebrating his forthrightness. I just wish he would at least just be accurate. I don't
Right.
mind
And it's
being
great to
loud.
have different opposing viewpoints. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about living in America, where we can have conversations and people are on different sides of the issue, and we all can come together. But that's the thing, we have to come together.
Yeah.
And if you keep dividing people, and you don't, you rub people the wrong way, you won't get anything done for the people who you represent, right? You won't get any bills passed or any bills heard, and that's just the really unfortunate part about issues like that are such national issues that Supreme Court have already, decided on. So that really grandstanding really doesn't do anything but hurt people, unfortunately.
Michael, if you could change one thing about the way we do our legislation here, maybe it isn't just only one thing, but if you could change something, what would you change?
It's a tough question, but I don't think we mentioned this before, but I've never seen a bill actually be voted against on the floor. They're always deferred, and so nobody's really on the record on whether or not they support certain things or are against certain things, because the bills don't make it through committee. So I would like to see maybe more open discussions in a polite, respectful way on the floor about the issues, and to actually take votes so that the constituents know where you stand on things.
Absolutely.
Boy, I'm absolutely all for that one.
Right.
I can remember, people would call and say, well, where's this bill? And you look it up on the capital.hawaii.gov, and you don't necessarily have any names attached to it because, or how they voted, because it didn't happen in a way where the votes needed to be counted.
And you think that's kind of counterintuitive to what we believe government should be, right? For the people, by the people, transparent. And I think that's something that, all across the nation, but, specifically here as well, we can work on a lot of transparency and seeing why, the constituents should know why your representative voted a certain way. They shouldn't have to dig into your campaign contributions or to look at maybe who supports you and who supports that group, things like that nature. And really try to put the pieces together of why you voted one way, and maybe they know all their friends and family think different, but you voted a separate way. So.
I didn't realize that it was such a bad thing to have a bill voted down. But I exactly know what you mean. I mean, every time it looked like they didn't have enough votes, they would call a recess.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should have to be that way. It shouldn't have to be looked down upon if you don't agree, right? And I think
in New York they don't, right?
Yeah.
We respect other people's
you respect
opinions.
other people's opinion.
That's why you may get elected or not.
Right, exactly. And it shouldn't be such, sure, it's a personal thing, but also it comes out of a really place of respect and transparency, I think.
So, do you think you might do something about that
Absolutely.
if you're elected?
I believe that is kind of really the core of my campaign is really, giving the power back to the people and allowing their voice to be heard at the state and all around the state in different issues. And I think I love people. I love talking to people, and I've always felt good about being a vector to carry other people's ideas, especially when I was in the service, being a leader and a platoon leader and a squad leader there, and advocating for my troops if they have issues and bringing it up to the chain of command and making changes happen for them. And I think it's going to be great.
Your phrase, what was it? You're trained to go towards danger.
Right.
And you said that. I said, yeah. So that's why he's at the Capitol.
Right. There you go. Exactly. No, that's really what it comes down to. A lot of people are like deer in headlights when they get up there, and I think that's where I thrive, really.
Well, okay. Well, we definitely want you thriving, and we definitely want more courteous discourse,
Absolutely.
but with some real accountability attached. If I had to change one thing, I'm always going, way off. I must say, Michael, I really like what you said, because that's
Me too.
doable.
I do
That's
really
doable.
like that. Yeah.
After watching this labyrinth and this whole complicated mess that the bills go through, and having one version in the House and one version in the Senate, it's like, why do we have two? Why do we have
Right.
two? Let's just have one. Make it bigger. But seriously.
Right.
Okay, so maybe we'll come back after the convention. I'll see you guys
that's right.
at the convention.
I'll be at the Democratic National
And
Convention.
chat some more. Thank you both so much for being on
Absolutely.
Hawaii is
Mahalo,
my
mahalo.
mainland.
Thank you for having me.